Introduce Human Connection speaker, Genevieve Piturro.
Good morning. I never in a million years thought I'd be sitting here today. 20 years ago, I thought I'd be Mary Tyler Moore. That's what I wanted to be. Growing up, watching TV on Saturday night, she had everything I wanted. I'm the firstborn, Italian parents, dad off the boat, wanted to come here, have a family so his children could go to college, and then his oldest daughter could have babies. That's what he wanted. I wanted to be a television producer. I wanted to be a single woman in a big city, sitting in a great office. That was success for me. My dad asked me time and time again. My sister got married, my brother got married, my other brother got married, sat me down every time. Are you sure you're okay with this job thing? I did, I loved it. And I was on my way, climbing the corporate ladder. I was single, I had a really nice co-op in Riverdale. I got to travel for work. And one day in this really nice co-op in Riverdale, I had a couple hours to myself. I was 38, so how old I am. And I heard a voice from here. Now, I was used to hearing voices from here that I would ignore. Probably a lot of us ignore. But this one came from here. I could feel the difference. And loud and clear, I heard a voice ask me, if this is the next 30 years, is this enough? And it stopped me cold. I'd never thought about beyond day to day, living the life I had always wanted. And I realized in that moment, no. What was I doing besides doing for me and making other people rich and doing what they wanted and living for no reason, for no legacy, for nothing to change? And all of a sudden, a light went off after that, call it a heart voice. And I thought, I'm missing children. There was something to be said for my dad from Italy and my mom sitting me down asking me if it was okay that sister and brothers got married and had family before me. So I really didn't think that they'd appreciate me going out and rounding up babies in some way. So I thought, how can I get them into my life? Reading the papers, as we all do, I knew that there were shelters. I knew there were places the police, the social workers would bring children who were in harm's way. I called the police. I asked them, where do you bring these children that we read about? Now, pre-9/11, you could do what I did. You could call a shelter and you could say, hi, I'm a nice person. Can I come and read to the kids? And they said, you sound like a nice person, sure. Pre-9/11. That's what I did. I went in my suit, unaware of where I was going or what I was going to see. They brought me to a room in a shelter. There were a couple of children's desks. It was pretty bare. I sat on the floor. They came in with the children who sat on the floor. They saw me sitting on the floor. They in a suit sitting on the floor, and they sat with me. About a dozen children sat around in a circle. I had children's books with me at about 7 o'clock, and I started reading to them. No idea what to expect. The children were so quiet. They listened to the stories. Then the staff came back and ushered them to another room. This happened week after week. Yonkers, Harlem, downtown, East 31st, where there's a major New York City shelter. One night, I followed to where they were taking these children. I was curious. And what they called the bedroom had a couple of futons and a couple of couches. 2 or 3 of the 12 or 15 children, each 2 or 3 on a cot on the surface. They had nothing to change into. The staff were really nice, but lights out, and that was it. And I stood there in the dark until they pulled me. All I could see was memories of my mom putting us to sleep at night, and the cookies, and the songs, and the milk, and the pajamas. And as they were ushering me to the door, I turned and I said, "Can I bring pajamas next week?" And one woman thought, "Sure, we have so much, we have to think about. Nobody's ever thought of that. That would be lovely." All I could think about was these children in the pajamas. So I went to every store, every half-price place I could, and I loaded up so many pajamas, and I brought them with the books to one of the shelters the next week. Did the same thing, sat on the floor, brought in a different group of children, and I read to them again. This time, I was so excited. I said, "Kids, I have a special surprise for you tonight." I had them stand in a line, and one by one, I had my big bag, and I pulled out a pair of pajamas I thought would fit the child in front of me. And that worked really well for a few of the children. Halfway through, there was a little girl, came up to about here. And I have her picture in my mind. She was in pink and lavender, her pants were too short, her pigtails were lopsided, her shirt was dirty, and her shoes were, must have been a size 10, they were so big. And of course I knew that that's what they had for her. So I tried to give her pajamas, and she shook her head. She wouldn't take them. And I kept trying, she shook her head. But she didn't want to go to the room to go to sleep, she wanted to watch me. So she watched me give them out to the kids, kept looking over to her, kept motioning. Finally, she was the last one. The other kids went into the room to change and go to sleep. And they brought her over to me. And I knelt down, and I said, "Honey, these pajamas will fit you, and they're pink. I held on to them because I see you wearing pink pants. Wouldn't you like your pajamas? They're nice and soft." And she whispered in my ear, "What are pajamas?" Still like yesterday. And I had to explain to a little girl that you put pajamas on to go to sleep. You don't have to wear your clothes. That story haunts me every day. It changed everything. And I've heard a couple of your stories. And the power of your story, and what Peter said, the power of that story will stay in your heart and hopefully be conveyed like Peter's was to us. Like I hope mine is to you. Like so many of yours, Rob told me a story, so many of yours stay. And that is what changes everything for all of us in this room. Telling that story, connecting with somebody who gets it, who feels that. Now, I was never afraid climbing the corporate ladder, never afraid. The day I was faced with what to do with this pajama thing, I was very afraid because all of a sudden, it wasn't about me. It was about the lists of children that were growing and growing. And I know those of you here who are founders, EDs, sitting on boards, there are scary days. There have been scary days for 20 years for a pajama program. And the one thing that I learned that I didn't know then was how far that heart connection, that story, your stories will take you if you let them out every day. If you tell people why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing what you're doing. No matter what the fear is, there will be someone who will step up and who will lend a hand. It's a mysterious thing. It's like the universe is our partner. And it's an incredible way that love and the heart will conquer those fears. It's still scary. I remember not knowing what to do to start this nonprofit. I didn't even know the first thing until we got lots and lots of letters because of an article in Parenting Magazine. Tons tons of packages of letters. And I opened one of them and I said, can you please send us your 501c3? I didn't know what that was. And it scared me when I found out. It's paperwork, it's lawyers, it's the government, you have to wait, you can't do it until. Somehow, begged enough people, got the lawyer, waited, sweated it out, got the 501c3, got past that hurdle. But every day you're faced with fundraising. I know it's still hard for me to ask for anything, let alone money, let alone trying to explain our goals and trying to attract new people. But if you tell your story every day, there's something that helps ease that fear. We were struggling during the recession, 2008. Maybe some of you were. Nonprofits were closing. Do you remember 2008? It was sort of a scary time. It was a scary time for us. And here I am sitting at our reading center in New York City, watching nonprofits close. Wall Street, all the people that were giving money were drying up. And I thought, how are we going to make it through the rest of the year? We're counting on people being generous and everybody's holding back. Somebody called from the board and said, let's bowl for a fundraiser. Let's go bowling. I don't bowl. I didn't know people in New York City bowled. I thought they bowled in Ohio. There's a bowling alley in New York City, who knew? I was the last person, I'm sure this was the look I had when I was on the phone with that person, and but she convinced me somehow to bowl, have a fundraiser bowling. So I went along reluctantly, thinking it was going to do, nothing but just make her happy. But do you know, it wasn't that we raised $1 million bowling, but we raised hope. And we raised love. We told stories. We rallied. And it renewed everyone at a time when there was worry and anxiety and sadness. And that's the power that you all have. And I will consider myself one of you. That if we tell our story and we open our hearts and we make that human connection, our fears will melt slowly and there will be people come up and save us from drowning. And I'm sure you've all been through some pretty scary days. So, if I can impress one thing, is you're not alone. I felt alone many times, especially in the beginning. But when I come here and I talk to you and I feel camaraderie and I know that you get it, and I hope you know that I get the good times and the bad times. And I think one thing we all feel is, are we doing enough? Could we be doing more? Get up so early, have long lists of things, have all those people we love counting on us, and that good work that we want to get done, our goals. And a very, very smart professor, a course I took about 10 years in, said to us, just own that piece of the chain you chose. Don't worry about what comes before or what comes after. Own your piece and do it to the best of your ability. And together, we'll reach the goal. And when he said that, it took a weight off me, because I think we all share that we want to do more, we wish we could do more. There's not enough time to do it all. So, I'm trying to do our piece of bedtime for these children. And if you're all doing your piece for the children, for the people who are ill, for the animals, the seniors, all of the group that you're doing so much for, then together we will not only, as Peter said, make it right in this room, but we'll bring love, we'll bring that human-to-human connection, that heart voice, that love, those stories to people outside this room. I hope that you all have something that inspires you. Somebody asked me, do you always think of that girl? Do you know what happened to that girl? I always think of that girl. I'll never forget her. But a few years ago, 2.5 years ago, I realized she was fading a little bit from my memory. And it was really, really very frightening to me that one day I might just see an outline of her. So I called my niece, who's an artist, and she lives in Chicago, and I asked her if I describe in full detail what that little girl looks like. Can you draw her? And she said, I'll do my best. So I talked to her for about 1.5 hours, and 2 weeks later, I got her picture.